At a military base, where soldiers from 14 nations trained to defend democracy, Mark Carney delivered a 12-minute speech that changed everything. What appeared to be routine military diplomacy was actually the launch of a new coalition, one that would lead the free world without America. The speech that Putin feared, the message that Trump tried to ignore, and the moment when the balance of global power shifted forever. But what Carney said in those 12 minutes was nothing compared to what he was planning behind the scenes. This is the inside story of how Canada's Prime Minister used a routine military visit to orchestrate the most significant realignment of Western leadership since World War II. By the time you understand what really happened at Latvia's Adazi base, you'll see why world leaders are now calling Carney the most dangerous man Putin has ever faced. Because sometimes the most important battles are won not with weapons, but with words that reshape the world. August 27, 2025. Dawn broke over Latvia's Adazi military base as 3,500 elite soldiers from 14 nations stood at attention. Mark Carney reviewed notes prepared not in Ottawa, but through clandestine meetings across 3 continents. But this wasn't supposed to be historic. The official schedule called for routine military diplomacy. Media expected generic NATO platitudes. What they didn't know was that Carney had spent 6 months orchestrating something revolutionary through back-channel communications with European leaders. In March, a 15-minute conversation with Macron actually lasted over an hour in a secure location. In May, a coincidental G7 encounter with German Chancellor Merz led to detailed discussions about European defense autonomy. By July, Nordic leaders were receiving carefully crafted proposals about enhanced regional cooperation. Each conversation built toward this moment. As Carney walked toward the podium, his phone buzzed. European partners confirmed. All systems go. It was the signal he'd been waiting for. What looked like a routine base visit was about to become a coordinated announcement reshaping global power. Standing before soldiers from Canada, Albania, Czech Republic, Denmark, Iceland, Italy, North Macedonia, Montenegro, Poland, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden, Carney was ready to announce something that would terrify Putin and infuriate Trump. But first, he had to deliver the speech that would prove the West could unify without America. Good morning, soldiers of the free world. The opening words weren't in his prepared remarks. They were a coded signal to leaders listening on secure channels across Europe. In Paris, Macron leaned forward. In Berlin, Merz canceled his afternoon meetings. I stand here today not just as Prime Minister of Canada, but as a representative of every nation whose sons and daughters serve shoulder to shoulder on this sacred ground. The phrase, sacred ground, was another coded signal. 3 weeks earlier, European defense ministers had secretly agreed that Adazi base would become the symbolic headquarters of their new defensive alliance. By calling it sacred ground, Carney was formally activating that agreement. The threat we face is not diminishing. Putin's aggression has shown us that authoritarianism will not be satisfied with half measures. But here at Adazi, you have shown us what true strength looks like. Not the strength of a single superpower imposing its will, but the strength of free peoples choosing to stand together. If you're watching because you want to see how real leadership challenges the status quo, hit that subscribe button now, because what Carney was about to announce would force every world leader to choose sides in a battle for the future of democracy itself. We can no longer wait for others to lead when leadership is demanded. We can no longer hope that others will defend our values when those values are under attack. We must act, and we must act together. This was the moment everything changed. In secure conference rooms across Europe, defense ministers began implementing protocols prepared months in advance. What Carney was announcing wasn't just rhetoric, it was the activation of agreements already negotiated and signed in secret. But the most shocking revelation was still coming. Today, I am proud to announce the formation of the Democratic Defense Alliance, a coalition of free nations committed to defending democracy, deterring aggression, and ensuring that our values will survive and thrive in the 21st century. The words hit like a thunderbolt. This wasn't in any briefing. They were witnessing the launch of a military alliance that would reshape global politics. The real shock was in the details. The nations represented here have committed to pooling our defense resources, sharing our military technologies, and coordinating our strategic planning to create the most advanced defensive capability the world has ever seen. In Washington, intelligence analysts scrambled. American satellites monitored European communications. Pentagon emergency briefings assessed implications of NATO allies forming a separate military alliance. This alliance operates on 3 principles, Carney continued, with the authority of someone announcing a new world order. First, collective defense without conditions. An attack on any member triggers automatic response protocols requiring no external authorization. No external authorization directly challenged America's traditional leadership role. Second, technology and intelligence sharing without restrictions. Our capabilities will work as one to ensure freedom maintains its technological advantage. This created a parallel intelligence network operating independently of American oversight, offering Europeans access to Canadian capabilities previously available only through American channels. Third, economic and energy security integration. Preferential trade agreements, joint infrastructure projects, and coordinated responses to economic warfare. Together, we represent 150 million citizens, $8 trillion in combined GDP, and the most advanced military-industrial complex outside the United States. This alliance will be headquartered here at Adazi base, 500 miles from Russia's border. The message to Putin was unmistakable. But so was the message to Washington. The new center of Western defense would be in Europe, not America. Vladimir Putin believes democracies are weak because we debate, because we question, because we allow dissent. He believes authoritarian control will triumph because free societies cannot match focused dictatorial power. Carney's voice hardened. The soldiers straightened instinctively. Putin is wrong. He has always been wrong, and today we prove him wrong. What came next sent shockwaves through the Kremlin. Mr. Putin, you have spent decades trying to divide the West, to break our alliances, to convince our citizens that democracy is chaos. You have failed. The direct address was unprecedented in modern diplomacy. But Carney was deliberately breaking protocol. You believed that if you could corrupt American leadership, the West would crumble. You were wrong about that too. The reference to corrupt American leadership was barely veiled accusation of Russian influence over Trump. Today, 3,500 soldiers from 14 free nations stand united, not because they were ordered, but because they chose to. You have tried to break us by threatening energy supplies, so we built independent networks. You tried to divide us with disinformation, so we created joint intelligence systems. You tried to intimidate us with nuclear threats. We have not been intimidated. We have been unified. This was Carney's most dangerous gamble. Let me be clear, Mr. Putin. The soldiers behind me will never bow to your threats. If you test our resolve, you will discover that free peoples fighting for survival are the most formidable force in human history. In Moscow, officials analyzed implications. Putin's strategy of dividing NATO had instead created an even more dangerous alliance, with all of NATO's capabilities, but none of its American-imposed limitations. But Putin wasn't the only leader receiving a message from Adazi base.
Hidden in Carney's speech were pointed references clearly directed at Washington. True leadership means inspiring others to lead alongside you, not commanding them to follow. Real strength comes from building bridges and supporting allies, not building walls and threatening friends. Every element, walls, tariffs, threatening friends, referenced Trump's policies. When America was truly great, it was because America understood that strength came not from standing alone, but from standing with others who shared its values. That America still exists, but it exists now in the hearts of free peoples everywhere who refuse to let authoritarianism overcome democracy. This was revolutionary. Carney was claiming that true American leadership had been abandoned by America itself and was now embodied in this new coalition. He was announcing that Canada and allies were assuming the mantle of Western leadership America had abdicated. We do not seek to replace anyone. We seek to fulfill the promise that freedom will always find a way to defend itself. In Washington, officials struggled to respond. How do you react when your closest ally announces they're prepared to defend the West without you? But what made this more than rhetoric was the military reality backing it up. The capabilities demonstrated here are just the beginning, Carney continued, gesturing toward advanced military equipment. Our shared investment in drone technology, AI, and cyber warfare has produced systems surpassing anything deployed by any individual nation. This referenced classified projects few knew about. For 18 months, Canadian, Swedish, German, and French contractors had secretly collaborated on next-generation weapons. The results? Technologies that could neutralize Russian hypersonic missiles and conduct precision strikes exceeding American capabilities. Our joint intelligence networks process information faster than any existing system. Our coordinated logistics can deploy forces anywhere in Europe within 72 hours. Our command structure responds to threats in real time without external consultation. Each capability was already operational. This wasn't announcing future plans, it was revealing systems ready for deployment. But the most devastating aspect wasn't military, it was economic. Today we announce the Democratic Trade Zone, an integrated economic space making member nations immune to economic blackmail from any source. Tariff-free trade, coordinated currency policies, and integrated supply chains that make us stronger than we could ever be alone. The currency coordination was significant. By linking currencies through coordinated policy, the alliance created exchange rate stability, making their relationships more attractive than the volatile American dollar. Nations attempting economic coercion against any member will find themselves isolated from the world's most advanced economic zone. The threat was unmistakable. Any country, including the U.S., using economic pressure would be cut off from $8 trillion in GDP. As Carney described economic dimensions, markets reacted immediately. Currency traders hedged against dollar instability. European stocks rose. Chinese officials began emergency consultations about potential European market losses. As the 12-minute speech concluded, worldwide reactions were immediate and intense. What should have been routine diplomacy had announced formation of a new superpower. Within hours, Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and South Korea reached out expressing interest in joining. What Carney presented as European-Canadian partnership was evolving into a global coalition of democratic nations. The speed revealed that many leaders had been waiting for an alternative to American-dominated relations. Prime Minister Carney articulated what many of us have been thinking. We need partnerships between equals, leaked one European defense minister. Even more shocking was the reaction from within the United States. American military officials, speaking anonymously, expressed admiration. "This is how we should have been operating all along," said one Pentagon source. "Equal partnerships produce better results than imposed hierarchies." The comment revealed growing dissatisfaction within American leadership with Trump's approach, giving officials a template for post-Trump international relations. The Brookings Institution published analysis within 24 hours. The Adazi Declaration marks the end of the unipolar moment. Whether America likes it or not, the world now has multiple centers of democratic leadership. What do you think? Was this brilliant strategy or dangerous betrayal of traditional alliances? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one and want to hear your perspective on whether America brought this on itself or if Carney went too far.
3 days later, the true scope emerged through seemingly unrelated announcements. France revealed military cooperation, sharing nuclear technology with Canada. Germany announced joint aerospace programs, producing superior fighter jets. Sweden and Norway created Joint Arctic Defense Command in Canadian territory. Each announcement was bilateral, avoiding treaty ratifications. By structuring as bilateral agreements rather than multilateral treaty, Carney created a system operating immediately without legislative approval. It was masterful legal and diplomatic engineering. The bilateral structure made the alliance nearly impossible to counter. No single agreement to attack, no central institution to undermine, no individual relationship to disrupt. Carney created something unprecedented, noted Oxford's Dr. Sarah Williams. Its military alliance, economic partnership, and intelligence network rolled into one, but legally invisible to existing institutions. The genius was adaptive flexibility. Unlike traditional alliances with fixed memberships, the Democratic Defense Alliance could expand or contract. New members joined through bilateral agreements. Members could deepen cooperation in some areas while maintaining independence in others. Intelligence analysts described it as the first truly 21st century alliance, designed for a world where traditional sovereignty concepts were becoming obsolete. Most remarkably, it had caught the world's intelligence services completely off guard despite months of monitoring communications. 6 months later, global implications were undeniable. The alliance evolved from military partnership into foundation of a new international system. Trade between members increased 40% in the first quarter. Joint technological programs produced quantum computing, AI, and renewable energy breakthroughs surpassing individual nation achievements. The intelligence network prevented 3 major terrorist attacks and exposed Russian disinformation campaigns. But the most significant change was psychological. For the first time since WW2, democratic nations had an alternative to American leadership. The choice wasn't between American dominance and Chinese/Russian influence. There was now a third option based on genuine partnership. What Carney accomplished wasn't just forming a new alliance, wrote historian Dr. Robert Kagan. It was restoring the idea that democracies could lead through cooperation rather than domination. The alliance achieved what traditional diplomacy had failed to accomplish for decades. It made authoritarianism look weak and outdated. By demonstrating superior capabilities through voluntary cooperation, it exposed fundamental inefficiencies of authoritarian systems. Putin's Russia, formidable against divided Western nations, looked increasingly isolated when confronting unified democratic coalition. China's economic model struggled against the alliance's integrated capabilities. As success became undeniable, American officials faced uncomfortable reality. The U.S. needed the alliance more than the alliance needed America. American pressure tactics backfired spectacularly. When Trump threatened Canadian energy tariffs, alliance members offered Canada preferential European market access that more than compensated for American retaliation.
The most humiliating moment came when American officials requested access to the alliance intelligence networks. The request revealed American agencies struggled to match alliance information quality and scope. By politely declining while offering case-by-case sharing, members made clear America was now the junior partner in Western intelligence. The tables have completely turned, observed former State Department official Dr. Jessica Matthews. America is now asking to be included in systems we used to control absolutely. Polls showed 60% of Americans approved of the alliance, many wishing America could join as equal partner rather than demanding dominance. 2 years later, Carney revealed the operation's most remarkable aspect in his first comprehensive interview. "People assume the alliance resulted from careful planning," he said with a slight smile. "But the truth is more interesting." The journalist leaned forward. "The bilateral agreements, military cooperation, economic integration, all had been developing organically for months before my speech. What I did at Adazi wasn't create the alliance. I simply announced that it already existed." It was the most sophisticated example of leading from behind in modern history. Rather than imposing vision on other nations, Carney identified existing trends and accelerated them by providing public recognition and formal structure. The alliance hadn't been created by Canadian diplomacy, it had been revealed by Canadian leadership. The genius, explained former State Department official Dr. Anne-Marie Slaughter, was that Carney didn't build from scratch. He recognized other nations wanted the same international relationship Canada wanted, and gave them framework for achieving it. By the second anniversary, the alliance had evolved into the most successful international organization since the UN. Standing again at Adazi base, surrounded by soldiers from 18 member nations, Carney reflected on how much had changed since that August morning when 12 minutes reshaped the world. The greatest victory wasn't that democracy defeated authoritarianism. It was that democracy finally learned to lead by inspiring others to lead alongside it. And that lesson was what would ensure freedom would always find a way to defend itself. The speech that began as routine diplomacy became foundation of a new era. At its heart was a revolutionary idea. When free peoples choose to stand together as equals, they become unstoppable.